I'm gonna tell you something I've never told anyone. 30 years ago, my friends and I spent the night at a cabin. We found the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. Certain passages were recited. It awoke something in the woods. Something evil. I was the only one to escape. But now, the evil has found me.
Hello and welcome to the Ash vs. Evil Dead podcast. This is a podcast in which we cover the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV series, which has just wrapped up in its season final on the Starz network. Of course, this series follows the mythology of the Evil Dead franchise that Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell has long been involved in. I personally am very much enjoying this show, and there's one thing you need to know about this episode and the Ash vs. Evil Dead podcast in general, and that is that we give out spoilers, so don't be offended whenever you guys listen and we spoil stuff, and don't leave us hate mail like, you motherfuckers, why'd you spoil that? So yeah, introducing me, I'm JP, and joining me tonight is Kyle. What's up, buddy?
What is up, JP? Rolling along to season 1, episode 8 on this episode, man. It's kind of crazy. We're on episode 8 already.
Yeah, two more to go after this one, bud.
Two more to go. So yeah, man, we're on season 1, episode 8. This episode's called Ashes to Ashes. It looks like it was directed by Tony Tilsey. Is that what his name is?
That is what his name is.
What has he done before?
He has directed like a bunch of TV stuff. So going back, he made his debut in '95. He worked on a bunch of stuff that I never heard of, a bunch of stuff I never heard of, a bunch of stuff I never heard of. Still going up his IMDb, and still a bunch of stuff I've never heard of. Literally nothing so far I've heard of except for Ash vs. Evil Dead in 2015. And he actually directed one of the episodes of Wolf Creek, the TV miniseries that's coming out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I also saw he's done several episodes of Farscape, which I used to watch. I used to be a really big sci-fi fan in middle and high school, and I used to watch Farscape, and he's done several episodes of.
What do you mean by sci-fi fan? Like the
sci-fi
TV
as
network?
No, not the TV network. Like sci-fi, like as in the genre sci-fi.
Oh, that's so lame.
So I really was into like Stargate, Farscape, Star Trek.
I like Stargate. Star Trek sucks. Stargate's awesome.
Yeah, says somebody that's never watched Star Trek. That's usually how it goes. But yeah, he's done a lot of Farscape episodes. But yeah, Tony Tilsey, he's the director. This was written by, it looks like, a former writer. He's written some other episodes. Actually, he's directed some episodes. This was written by Michael J. Bassett, who actually directed the 2nd and 3rd episode of the series. So kind of going back, he's writing and directing, it looks like, I guess.
Yeah, he's wrote the movie Death Watch, which was from 2002, which I recently picked up. I'm very curious on. It looks like a military horror movie, which I think is completely made, and he directed that film as well as Wilderness and Silent Hill Revelations 3D.
I never actually saw Silent Hill Revelations. I saw the first Silent Hill movie, and I think there was a second one, I want to say. Maybe it was Revelations was the second one, but the first Silent Hill movie was actually pretty decent. I actually kind of like that. But that's interesting. Pretty cool. So Michael J. Bassett wrote this episode. Like I said, he directed the second episode, Bait, and the 3rd episode, Books from Beyond. And this episode actually aired on December 19th of 2015, so about 2.5 weeks ago from when we're recording this. So you want to get in some viewership?
Yeah, so the viewership for this episode once again has broke the record, and it now is at 465,000, which means that it is the most viewed episode thus far, which is still just blowing my mind. But after seeing the episode, I definitely know why people were interested.
Yeah, so we'll kind of go ahead and get into the episode, kind of just jump into this. like I said, this is episode 8 from the first season, Ashes to Ashes, which is kind of a play on. I think that the episode title is a play on the actual episode, some things that happen in the episode. So,
definitely.
So to start off, Ash, it's kind of a funny. I actually wrote this down. Ash starts heading back to the cabin. On his way back to the cabin, you see it's a really cool. I guess scenery. I mean, it's like a bunch of dead trees. There's a bunch of dead animals. Funny scene at the beginning of the episode is Ash picks up this bird, and he looks at it. He's like, "There's nothing survives around here." And the bird all of a sudden comes alive, and it like starts chirping. And then he just throws the bird at a tree, and the damn bird explodes. And like,
it's hilarious.
He's like, "Nothing survives around here," and the bird's actually still alive. And then he kills it. So kind of funny. And something I notated as well that happens at the beginning is he's walking up to the cabin, and this is the cabin from the first movie, by the way. He starts kind of hearing.
It's not the actual cabin.
It's not the actual cabin, but it's supposed to be the actual cabin. Like they're saying that he's going back to the cabin from the first movie, but it doesn't honestly look like it or anything.
No, yeah, right. It looks like it totally.
Well, it looks like it, but it doesn't look like. You could tell that. Like, I think when he was walking up to it, it was CGI. To be honest with you, did it not? I'm pretty sure that cabin, when he was walking up to it, like the first initial shot of it was CGI. I'm pretty positive.
I mean, maybe like the background and stuff. I'm not sure.
Who knows? But one of the things that happened when he first walks up that I notated is he starts hearing voices from the first movie. He starts hearing like his girlfriend and like some of the other people that were at the cabin with the first movie, and the same rocker from the first movie that was kind of rocking back and forth in the first movie, hitting the side of the cabin when they first walked up. It was doing the same thing, and when he looked over at it, it stopped.
Yeah.
Just like
definite callback to the original films. Loved it right away. I gotta say, like, as soon as I seen the cabin, I was so excited. And honestly, dude, I had no like expectation for that to happen in the series. Obviously, a few episodes ago it was hinted at, which I expected it to happen then. But, you know, before I started watching this show, I never even considered that they would go back to the cabin. But it makes perfect sense to go back to the cabin. That's like a great idea. I was super happy that they did that, and the way that it played out, through the whole episode, I loved. But right away, the rocker hitting the I don't know why rocker is a stupid word. I don't know why you called it that.
It's like a swing. I guess it's
the swing. The swing chair was hitting against it was rocking against the cabin, and I loved it.
Yeah, and I loved like when he looked over at it, it just stopped, kind of like exactly the first movie. So it was really like a really awesome throwback. And just so everybody knows, like I probably out of all three of them, a lot of people like the second Evil Dead the most. I love the first Evil Dead. It just nostalgia for me seeing it as as I did, seeing it as a kid. It just like always reminds me, like especially a lot of things in this series remind me. A lot of callbacks to this in this season and the series are to the first movie, so it's pretty neat to see. But yeah, so Ash is on the front porch at this point. He turns around, he hears some noises. He turns around, and Amanda's behind him. So Amanda actually followed him to the cabin. He didn't want her to, but she did. She states that Pablo and Kelly went their separate ways. Were looking for him, and she actually came. I don't know how the hell she found him, but she found the cabin where he was at. And they kind of go into the cabin, and Ash is kind of talking about how some things that went down there. Amanda starts kind of looking at the crawl space. Like if you guys remember from the first movie, there was a deadite that was one of Ash's friends, like a chick that was in the crawl space. That if you guys don't remember the famous scene where she took the pencil and stabbed that guy in the ankle. She starts looking in that crawl space or trying to open up that crawl space, and Ash is like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. That's I probably wouldn't do that.
It's the basement latch.
The basement latch, whatever.
It's a door in the floor. It's the basement, dude.
Yeah, it's like one of those old school, I guess.
It's a hatch.
Hatch, yeah. So it kind of cuts off. You see Ash's hand walking, kind of pulling itself through the wall, like it cuts off.
It actually had an eye, which I thought was weird.
I actually thought that was kind of stupid.
Yeah, honestly, it's stupid as fuck. Yeah, I didn't like it.
I was like, why?
It kind of hints at the fact that the hand is capable of like regenerating or like growing other parts to it.
Yeah, which kind of we'll get to that in a minute, but Yeah, I thought the eye was kind of just it
so
was really poorly CGI'd onto the hand.
yeah, one thing. One thing that I really liked was that they had the cellar door. That, I mean, just looking at the cabin, like the deer head falls, like there's a lot of things that are very similar to the original film.
Yeah.
And as it goes through, he decides to go out and get a crowbar in the tool shed. But first, he has a brief conversation talking about like, okay, you don't want to go out to the tool shed. And he's like, and she's like, why? Yeah. And she's like, well, pieces of my ex-girlfriend are still out there. It's great.
Yeah, if you guys don't remember from the first movie, he like stuck his girlfriend's head in a vice and like cut it off with his chainsaw. So yeah, I mean, he's like pretty much do not go out to that shed. You stay here. I'll go out there so I can get like a crowbar. We'll try to open up this hatch and see what's. Which honestly, I don't really know why they're trying to open up that hatch. I don't know.
Well, maybe we'll find out in the next episodes. But I will say that. He does say that he, cut her head off with a shovel and then she did a dance. Just the way that he describes the events that happened in the first film is so nostalgic for me, but it's also really funny because it sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah, and he's like laughing about it, sort of. Like he's like kind of like making a joke about it.
Because he knows how ridiculous it sounds too.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's pretty funny to hear him. Like he's very like they had Ash kind of going in this episode, man. Like the jokes kept rolling like over and over and over to the point where it was just very comical. So, but yeah, like Ash goes out to the shed. Amanda's inside. Kind of cuts off and shows Pablo and Kelly walking through the woods. They have guns in their hands, and they end up meeting up with some hikers or some people that are backpacking. It's two girls and a guy. And asking them if they could, help them out. They're trying to find a cabin. The hikers are like, we saw a cabin back there. It's back that way. And then, our Pablo and Kelly want them to take them to the cabin. So they're cool with it. Really funny scene with Pablo and Kelly in this episode that you kind of get a hint that Kelly may have feelings for Pablo. Is one of the girls, this blonde girl that's with the hikers, kind of like, has the eyes for Pablo, I guess you could say. Like she's kind of like looking at him and kind of flirting, and Pablo kind of starts to do it back. Pablo walks ahead, and Kelly's talking to the girl, and she's like, "Is he or
are you dating him?
Are you dating him?" Yeah, and
Kelly was like, "No, no,
no, I'm not dating him." And then she's like, "Ooh, I might have to hook up with him later." And then Kelly's like, "He has a girlfriend."
Yeah, so, which he doesn't.
Obviously.
Yeah. So I mean. One of two things. Either A, she's very protective, like it's her brother and she doesn't want her brother hooking up with a slut. Some people don't care, some sisters wouldn't care, or she has feelings. I tend to lean on the feelings thing.
Yeah. I have a feeling that she has she has feelings that are kind of like buried inside of her, and she knows they're there, but she's trying to ignore them. But at the same time, she still can't help but, she wants bitches to back off, basically. She's like, this bitch needs to back off. I've already been through enough with this dude. I'll eventually, come to with all this, but they're going to back off. They're not going to have sex with them. So I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, that's probably setting up for stuff later on in the series.
Which, honestly, I felt like that scene did have a little, not that scene, but them running into the hikers. It has the purpose of getting them to the cabin, like, hey, the cabin's over this way, because how else would they have found it? But at the same time, like, it really did feel like out of place. Like, why are these people just walking in them random ass woods,
Yeah.
And if this cabin's so secluded, why is Chick's head still like in a vice out there? You know what I mean?
It's really funny, the settings of these the settings, the way that things are set in these episodes.
Yeah, like it doesn't. I don't know if like the world is like. At first, I thought it was gonna be like post-apocalyptic or like. I'm not sure still how the world is running. Like, is everything just normal?
The woods they were in just looked like fucked. Like it looked like weird. Like it looks like something out of a storybook, like Alice in Wonderland or something. The woods, the actual setting, and like as far as like the what the world is going through. Yeah, they haven't really explained that yet. Like we don't know if this is just going on in this town, or if it's just in like half the world, if it's the whole world. Like they really haven't, and I'm sure they will eventually kind of explain all this, but it just doesn't, like we're not really sure if they're fighting evil to get it out of this town or out of the world.
Yeah.
So.
And so as Ash is in the tool shed, he's looking around and he begins to hear his old girl Linda start talking to him. and he is not having it. He's like, I'm not going to talk to you. He knows the game already.
Yeah, so she's like trying to, I guess, get to him, or the evil is trying to get to him, and it shows her head in the vice grip, and she's kind of taunting him, and then all these like tools start kind of flying at Ash, and she locks the door and doesn't let him out.
Yeah,
which tool shed.
It's awesome because the first thing you see is a skull in the vice, and anybody who's seen the classic Evil Dead knows what happened there, and to just see like you can see the chainsaw mark and the skull, like it's cool, man.
Yeah, it really is. It's very nostalgic, to see that kind of stuff. So
we flash back to Amanda after this, where she is now with Ash, and basically Ash is like, "Listen, we should just split. There's no need for us to be here. I mean, I'm tired of dealing with this stuff." And Amanda's like, "No, we need to stay." And then they have like a little touching moment where they're kind of like flirty, and they do eventually kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of a funny scene. She's like looking at like notebooks from the about the Necronomicon in the room that she's in, and then Ash walks in, they kiss, and she notices that his hand is attached back to his arm, like surprisingly, but there's like maggots all over it.
Yeah, it's freaking gross.
Yeah, and then pretty much at this point you can tell that this Ash is not Ash.
Yeah, the viewer can tell that it's obviously something else. And there's a line dropped where she's like, how do you have a hand? He's like, well, either I grew a hand or a hand grew me.
Yeah, so you kind of get the hint that maybe this hand just grew. I don't know how, but the arm or the hand grew like another Ash, because we saw that eye in it earlier, and somehow it just grew an entire Ash somehow. So, so the bad we'll call him Bad Ash. He starts fighting.
Dude, are you serious?
What?
Bad Ash? You're gonna tell me you passed
Evil
up
Ash.
on exactly?
Evil Ash. Okay, my bad. We'll call him Evil Ash. Starts fighting Amanda. So. Pretty much the scene, in this scene, they're fighting back and forth. He's trying to choke Amanda out. She grabs what does she grab? She grabs something and bashes it over his head.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then she grabs a hatchet.
Or a hatchet. Yeah, okay. Yeah, she grabs a hatchet. She cuts off his hand at one point.
Yeah, and we're like, okay, so they got rid of the fucking hand. Now he's back to normal, because the audience still assumes this is Ash, and obviously his hand's attached to him, but we know his hand's evil, not him. So she chops off the hand, and you're like, oh, all good. But no, not all good.
No.
He's still Evil Ash. He tricks her, and then he basically sticks the cleaver to her freaking neck. And I was like, wait, this has to be like a dream or something. They're not going to kill her.
Yeah.
And then they. So, one thing I got to say, Kyle, and like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I hated the way this scene played out. Hated it.
Why did you hate it?
One, she got a cleaver to the neck and chest area. That's enough. That's good enough to do her in. Okay, but then she falls on the antlers of the deer, and it bursts through her chest. Okay, I'm cool with that if that's like the final blow. But the fact that she's still alive for so long and she's still talking and stuff, to me, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous because she has nothing, like she's not evil or she's not possessed, so she's human, so she shouldn't be able to live that long.
Well, take it like this. This is the way I'm taking this series, period, is that it's well over the top. Like, we saw Ruby in a couple episodes prior. I think that prior episode fall into some fire and disappear.
Yeah, but we don't know that Ruby isn't part of, like, the Deadite world.
True, but there are a lot of things in this series so far that are very unrealistic, and I'm taking this as one. I mean,
demons are unrealistic.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about as far as deaths go, and not just the series storyline, but like the deaths. Like, we've seen several deaths already that would probably be a little bit more like her partner being flown in the air through antlers on a wall.
But he was the Deadite.
Well, he didn't turn into the Deadite until he was after he had flown into the antlers on the wall.
You're right.
So,
but okay, and he wasn't sitting there talking, was he?
No,
or did he just die?
Yeah, I agree. I thought that
it's because she is a main character. She's a main character, and she is an important character, and I feel like it's crappy to like send off a main character in such an unrealistic, cheesy way. Because I thought it was cheesy.
Honestly, I didn't think she was a main character, to be honest with you.
Well,
I really
she's
thought
not
she
a
was the
main character, but she's a
She was-
fucking main part of the storyline right now.
I thought she was an expendable character. Period.
Everybody knows she's gonna die. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
didn't
she's
think she
a
was gonna
main
die.
character.
I had no idea she was going to
Oh,
die.
come on. You think she was
didn't.
gonna die?
I had no idea in this episode. I had no idea in the first season that I thought she may die, but with the way that things were going with her and Ash, I was like, well, this might be a character that may be on the show for a while. But yeah,
I guess so. I guess so. But I had a feeling that she was gonna die because you have to kill some main character. And when I say main character, like I don't mean a top bill character. There's 3 top bill characters. You already know that. I'm saying like a main character besides the top bill 3.
Well, yeah. I mean, her and Ruby, in my opinion, at this point in time, were kind of like, they were there and they were part of the storyline, but they weren't in every episode. You know what I mean? For a couple episodes there, like it only showed Ruby and Amanda a couple times.
Yeah, but now she's like part of the group now. So
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that she was a little bit more of a main character. My main point is she's a love interest. She was an important person to the group, and to send her off in a way like that, I just wasn't a fan of it.
Yeah, I can agree with you. I don't. I do like the I did like the over the top death that she had. I know you didn't, but I was kind of a fan of that for some reason. I know that it was kind of like, she was talking after she was impaled, blah blah blah. But I thought it was pretty badass that she got a cleaver to the fucking throat. And
and I thought that would have been a good way to kill her right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're just trying to go for like as much over the top with some of this stuff.
Yeah, but they wasn't even going for over the top when she's talking though. The idea that she's still like, what's over the top is her getting hit with the cleaver and then her falling into the antlers. That's the over the top part.
I think
the
they were
part
just
that's
kinda
not
trying to
over the
keep
top
character.
is where she continues to talk and say things afterwards. That's just bad.
I think that they're just trying to give her character like an ending. Like, I mean, obviously she's dead now. I mean, we know that. But at the same time, we don't know what's going to happen to her next. So they're trying to give her like good side, maybe an ending with the little talking thing. She had a moment with Ash at the end where, Ash kissed her again and then she died. At the end, we didn't even mention this. Pablo comes walking in with Kelly, and Ash is looking at him. He's like, "It wasn't me, but it was me."
Yeah.
And then, at the end of the episode, Evil Ash and Ash are fighting and choking each other out, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So they're pretty much just, they get into a fight and they're like, well, I know you have a shitty liver, so he punches it. It's kind of remind you of Army of Darkness a little bit.
Yeah.
There's an Evil Ash fight in there. Yeah, so not much trivia or anything on this episode because these are still kind of new, but I did notice this on IMDb trivia section that this episode actually marks the 4th time Ash's girlfriend Linda appears and is played by 4 different actresses.
Interesting.
Yeah, so pretty interesting. And I don't know who that would be because I thought she was only in 3 movies. Or she was in the 2 movies and then the TV show. So was she in Army of Darkness too?
I can't remember, dude. I haven't seen Army of Darkness in so long. It's been like, I've watched the first 2 like a lot, but I just have not watched. I've seen Army of Darkness several times. I just do not remember. It's been that long since I've seen that movie. So,
you want to get into tiers?
Yeah, man. I guess I'll start out. Personally, for me, and I have a feeling that you may disagree with me on this, I felt like this was my favorite episode so far in this series. I think it was the nostalgia of the episode of being in the being in the cabin, of things that happened in the cabin with Linda, and then you got to see them trying to open up that cellar door, the hatch, and them talking about you hear the sound clips from the original movie. It just brought back a lot of nostalgia. I even like I said, I liked Amanda's death. I thought it was pretty badass how Evil Ash and her were fighting and, all the blood. It was a pretty good gore scene. I'll give this a high tier rating just because of the fact they went back to the cabin. I mean, I felt like that's very significant to this whole entire series. It didn't really give you much storyline, but we are back at the cabin, which is like awesome. So I'm going to give it a high tier rating. I thought it was pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, actually. I'm giving it a high tier rating, too. And even though I had an issue with the way they killed Amanda, I definitely loved, and I mean loved, this setting. Like, I was so excited when we finally got there. I was like, oh my god, it's the cabin. Like, oh, look, it's the room that's kind of blue and has the, oh, look, there's the piano. Like, there was just things about it that I was noticing. It was like, they really did a good job kind of recreating this cabin. It was definitely acceptable. Definitely acceptable for, trying to recreate what that cabin looked and felt like, including the tool shed. There's actually, I believe, shots of, the chainsaw where it was outlined in chalk on the wall and stuff. I believe those are shots directly lifted from the original film.
Yeah, I think they are too, from what I remember. Yeah, it was just like all around. They did a very good job, I feel like, of incorporating things from the original, the original movies into this episode. Down to like like JP saying, the details of like that chalk outline of the chainsaw, and specific things that they put in this episode, just very, very detail oriented and just were very good. So, yeah, I definitely agree. A high tier rating is definitely what this episode deserved.
Yep, and that'll do it for this episode. We have 2 episodes left, and then we're done. We're done with the series until a year down the road. Usually That's what it is, right? A year usually.
Yeah, it's usually like 6 months to a year or something in there. But yeah, the next episode we got coming next week is Bound in Flesh. Check that out. Check out the podcast on, DoubleShotJ is JP's YouTube channel. Mine is the Horrorphile. It's also on iTunes. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know if you guys enjoy listening to these commentaries. But yeah, that's pretty much it.